Have you ever truly considered what a movie is? At its very core, it is not truly moving. Instead, it is a rapid succession of still photographs. These individual pictures, when displayed quickly enough, create a powerful illusion. This illusion is the magic of cinema. It tricks our brains into perceiving continuous motion where none actually exists. The secret behind this grand deception lies in something called the frame rate. It is a fundamental concept, a cornerstone of filmmaking that dictates how we experience a story on screen. Understanding frame rates opens up a new dimension of appreciation for the art and science of cinema. The frame rate is, in essence, the speed at which these still images are shown to us. Think of it like flipping through a flip book. If you flip the pages slowly, you see individual drawings, but if you flip them quickly, the drawings appear to animate, to come alive. Filmmaking operates on this very same principle, but on a much more sophisticated and technologically advanced scale. The number of frames presented to your eyes each second profoundly impacts the smoothness of motion, the clarity of action, and even the emotional tone of a scene. It's an invisible conductor, orchestrating our visual journey through a film. Why should this technical detail matter to you, the viewer? Because it shapes your entire perception of the film. A low frame rate might make action scenes feel jerky or disjointed. So what exactly is this frame rate we speak of? The term itself offers a clue. Frame refers to a single still image in that long sequence that makes up a film. Rate refers to the speed at which these frames are displayed. We measure this rate in frames per second, commonly abbreviated as FPS. If a film is projected at 24 FPS, it means that in every single second you are watching, exactly 24 individual still pictures are flashed before your eyes. Each one is slightly different from the last, capturing a tiny increment of movement or change. Imagine a photographer taking pictures of a sprinter. If they take one picture every second, the sense of motion when you view those pictures later will be very choppy. You would miss most of the action, but if the photographer could take 24 pictures every second, and you viewed them in sequence over 1 second, the sprinter's movement would appear much smoother, more fluid, and more lifelike. This is precisely what a film camera and projector achieve. The higher the FPS generally, the smoother the perceived motion becomes. How does our brain take a series of static images and see fluid, continuous motion? This remarkable feat is largely due to a phenomenon often referred to as persistence of vision. When an image is presented to our eyes, the perception of that image lingers in our brain for a tiny fraction of a second, even after the image itself is gone. If a new image appears before the previous one has completely faded from our neural pathways, our brain cleverly bridges the gap. It blends these successive images together, creating the illusion of uninterrupted movement. This is complemented by another perceptual effect, known as the beta movement or phi phenomenon. When two or more slightly different still images are shown in rapid succession at different positions, we perceive an object moving from the first position to the second. Our brain doesn't just see a series of images, it actively constructs a narrative of motion between them. It's an incredible example of our minds filling in the blanks, making sense of discrete visual inputs by interpreting them as a coherent, flowing reality. Cinema essentially hijacks this natural process for storytelling. The specific frame rate used interacts directly with these perceptual mechanisms. The journey of frame rates in cinema is a fascinating story of technological evolution and artistic discovery. In the very early days of filmmaking, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there was no standardized frame rate. Cameras were often hand-cranked, meaning the speed at which the film strip moved past the lens depended entirely on how fast the camera operator turned the crank. This led to considerable variation, not just from film to film, but even from scene to scene within the same movie. Imagine the inconsistency this created for audiences. These early films typically ran anywhere from 16 to 24 FPS, though some could be slower or slightly faster. Projectionists also had control over playback speed, sometimes adjusting it to match the perceived mood of a scene or even the reactions of the audience. If a comedy scene was getting big laughs, they might slow it down slightly to prolong the humor. If a dramatic moment was dragging, they might speed it up. This variability meant that the look of motion in early cinema was often characterized by a certain flickering, sometimes sped-up quality that we now associate with the silent era. The lack of standardization posed challenges. Filmmakers couldn't be entirely sure how their work would be presented, and the viewing experience could be inconsistent. However, this period was also one of immense experimentation. Section 5. Silent films and variable speeds, an era of experimentation. The silent film era, roughly spanning from the 1890s to the late 1920s, was truly the Wild West for frame rates. As mentioned, hand-cranked cameras meant that the person operating the camera had direct physical control over the capture speed. This was both a limitation and a source of creative, if sometimes accidental, expression. A cameraman might crank faster during an exciting chase scene to heighten the sense of speed, or slower for a more contemplative moment, though consistency was often the primary goal, even if difficult to achieve perfectly. Projectionists, too, played a crucial role. They often received instructions from distributors or studios regarding the intended projection speed for a particular film. These notes might suggest, for example, Reel 1 at 16 frames per second, Reel 2 at 18 frames per second. However, adherence to these suggestions varied. The projectionist was, in many ways, a co-performer, adjusting the speed based on the equipment, the audience's reaction, or even their own artistic interpretation. This meant that the same film could look quite different depending on where and when it was shown. Section 6. The sound revolution standardization at 24 FPS. The arrival of synchronized sound in the late 1920s with films like The Jazz Singer in 1927 was a monumental turning point for cinema. It wasn't just about adding dialogue and music, it had a profound and immediate impact on the technical specifications of filmmaking, most notably on frame rates. Sound, unlike the more forgiving visual element, required absolute consistency in playback speed. If the film ran too slow or too fast, the pitch and tempo of the audio would be distorted, making voices sound unnaturally deep or high-pitched, and music sound warped. To ensure that recorded sound played back accurately and intelligibly across all theaters, a single standardized frame rate for both capture and projection was essential. After some experimentation with various speeds, the industry eventually settled on 24 frames per second. This rate was chosen as a compromise. It was fast enough to provide a reasonably smooth visual illusion of motion, and, crucially, good enough quality for optical sound reproduction, which was recorded directly onto the film strip alongside the images. Section 7. Frame rates as a creative brush impact on film genres. The choice of frame rate is not merely a technical decision. It is a powerful artistic tool that filmmakers can wield to enhance storytelling and evoke specific moods, particularly across different genres. While 24 FPS remains the dominant standard, subtle deviations or deliberate choices for specific effects can significantly alter the audience's perception. For example, slow motion, achieved by shooting at a higher frame rate, like 48, 60, or even 120 FPS, and then playing it back at the standard 24 FPS, can beautifully emphasize a dramatic moment, highlight an athletic feat, or create a dreamlike lyrical quality. Consider action films. While traditionally shot at 24 FPS, the desire for clearer, more detailed action sequences has led some filmmakers to experiment. Fast pans or rapid movements at 24 FPS can result in motion blur, which can sometimes obscure the details of a fight or a chase. Shooting certain sequences at a slightly higher rate, or even the entire film, as some have tried, can reduce this blur, making the action feel more immediate and visceral. However, this can also, as we'll discuss, alter the traditional cinematic feel, which is not always desired. In contrast, some filmmakers might intentionally use undercranking, shooting at a frame rate lower than 24 FPS and playing it back at 24 FPS to create a sped-up, chaotic, or comical effect. Section 8. The high frame rate horizon. Modern technology and artistic debates. The digital revolution in filmmaking has unlocked new possibilities for frame rates, leading to the emergence of high frame rate cinema. HFR typically refers to films shot and projected at 48 FPS, 60 FPS, or even 120 FPS, significantly higher than the traditional 24 FPS. Proponents of HFR argue that it offers numerous benefits: enhanced clarity, reduced motion blur, smoother panning shots, and a more immersive experience, particularly for 3D films, where the added clarity can reduce eye strain and make the 3D effect more convincing. Filmmakers like Peter Jackson with the Hobbit trilogy at 48 FPS and Ang Lee with Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk and Gemini Man at 120 FPS have championed HFR, seeking to push the boundaries of cinematic presentation. They believe that higher frame rates can bring audiences closer to the reality of the scene, creating a more visceral and immediate connection with the characters and their world. The technology now exists to capture, edit, and project these higher frame rates, offering a new palette for visual storytelling. However, HFR has also sparked considerable debate among filmmakers, critics, and audiences. Many viewers find the hyper-realism of HFR unsettling. It can sometimes create what is often dubbed the soap opera effect, where the image looks too smooth, too video-like, and lacks the dreamlike, slightly detached quality that many associate with traditional 24 FPS cinema. Section 9. Conclusion. A new appreciation for every single frame. Our journey through the science and history of frame rates reveals just how integral this single technical parameter is to the art of filmmaking. From the variable, hand-cranked speeds of the silent era to the standardized 24 FPS that defined cinematic motion for generations, and now to the emerging possibilities of high frame rate, the way we capture and display sequential images has profoundly shaped our experience of movies. It is a testament to the intricate dance between technology, human perception, and artistic intent. Each frame is a brushstroke in a larger, moving painting. Understanding frame rates allows us, as viewers, to see films with a new depth of appreciation. We can begin to notice the subtle characteristics of motion, the clarity of an action sequence, or the deliberate stylistic choices that a director makes regarding the temporal flow of their narrative. It demystifies part of the magic, yet simultaneously enhances our wonder at the ingenuity involved in creating such compelling illusions. We are no longer just passive consumers of images, but more informed observers of a complex craft. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.